I'm back with Snowman number 2. This is a fun little guy and not hard to do, very easy to do. For those of you who are going crazy with these little like greeting card type looks, and this is not your thing, hang on because we're doing trees next, Christmas trees, 3 or 4 different kinds. And they'll be a different style. But these are really fun to do. They're just easy, they're fun. And I just want to show you really quickly before we start today. You should have had a line drawing in your on your email, and also with the last one that we did as well. So I went ahead and put my line drawing on my card. And I just want to give you a little tip, something a little bit different. If you are falling in love with watercolor and really enjoying what you're doing, and you have a few bucks extra, I'm going to suggest a whiteboard, or I'm sorry, a light board, not whiteboard, a light board, which I would do except it's going to be really bright. They're awesome, and you can get them fairly cheap. The first one I had, I actually got at a garage sale. It's about half the size, doesn't go quite as bright as I would like it to go. So I finally, when I got into really selling paintings and doing commissions and all that stuff, I decided to invest in this one. It's called Artograph, A-R-T-O-G-R-A-P-H, Artograph, a light pad, 930LX. Now I've had this for several years, so I'm not sure what the cost is now, I'm sorry to tell you. But it's fairly, you can get a really good light pad for probably 60, 70 bucks. Maybe even less, depending on where you can go on eBay and get them, probably really cheap on eBay. Just take a time to get to your house. And where this comes from Amazon, so like everything else on Amazon, it comes in about 30 seconds. But a light board is really awesome. If you've been putting your pictures up on your window to take your line drawing and get it onto your card, then you probably would know that a light pad would be really a cool thing to invest in. So if you have the bucks to do it, you might try that. So let's go ahead and get busy to paint. So here we go. Here is our Snowman number 2. Now Snowman number 2 is going to take a little bit more time than Snowman number 1 did, but not much. Pretty darn close to the same time, maybe 20 minutes. The thing that'll take the time on this one is the scarf, depending on how you want to do your scarf. And we'll talk about that when we get to the scarf part, which will be really soon, because it's an easy painting. But here we have our line drawing. Here we have our cards with our line drawing. And we're going to start with a background. Now remember, on the one we did last time, we didn't have a background. This is the one we did last time. And we used negative space, right? We didn't have we weren't drawing the whole snowman. We were just drawing bits and pieces to imply that there was a head here. So on this one, different. This one we actually have a whole snowman drawn, and we're going to put a background in. And that's the first thing we're going to do. You can do it with a fairly large brush. In fact, I like doing it with my really big black velvet brush. This is an oval, 3/4 inch size. If you don't have that size, use the biggest one you've got that's close to that. You can also use this one. This is my black velvet, but it's on my number 8. I don't like using a smaller brush for backgrounds because there's kind of a thing about watercolor that you use the largest brush you can use to create the thing you're trying to create. In other words, bigger is better when it comes to painting most backgrounds. So wet the brush. I made my background kind of a greenish blue, but very, very watery. It's barely there. And I simply went around the head, the body of the snowman, like I'll show you in a second. And you'll notice I went inside the line sometimes, outside the line sometimes. Again, it's a fantasy card, so have some fun with it and don't feel like you have to be perfect about it. So I'm going to mix some blue and some green together here, but make it super, super watery. Usually you don't see me with water floating around in my little bowls, but it will this time because I am making this. I'm going to add more water. I mean drippy, drippy water. I want it to be super drippy tea consistency. If I'm not sure if it's the right consistency, just try it out and see how you like it before you do it. So I'm going to go around, totally around the snowman, and just pull the paint out like that. And when I pulled the paint out, it kind of puddled here and there. I'm leaving it alone because I want it to be kind of weird looking. I don't want it to be perfect. This is a great way to get rid of perfectionism in people, isn't it? Because you're going to do things that would require you to be loose. Just dragging this around here. Here, I'm being very sloppy about it. I'm not taking my time. Doop, 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 doop. That's it. Background's done. Ta-da! Took us about 30, 40 seconds, tops. So there's my background. It'll dry lighter than it is right now. I am going to put a little bit of darker color around the head right here as a shadow. Okay, now I'm saying to myself, oh, that was too much right there. Get your handy dandy Kleenex out. That's what your Kleenex is for. Okay, not for blowing your nose like you thought. It's actually for painting. So we've got our snowman. Now you notice he came out white right away. You can leave him white, just this, like a negative painting idea where you just leave the snowman white and you paint in the scarf and the eyes and all that, and that'll look great. Now what I did on this one, I don't know if you can tell, but he's not white. He's almost a kind of a pinkish orange color, just to give him some texture, because I didn't want to have him be as perfectly blah as that last snowman was. So I am going to add some color to him, and I am going to use my big brush still, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red together, but super watery. And I'm picking up my color from the side of my bowl because I don't want to have much color on here. Okay, and as I pull the brush away, I can see the watery paint slip down the side of the bowl, and I can tell right away it's too dark. I'm going to add some more water, dip my brush in and add some more water until it's super watery. Now when I do this kind of thing, these are the times where when I get done with the painting, I got to take Kleenex and dab it all out of there again because I don't want it to be sitting on the other parts of my colors. So if you decide you're going to paint your snowman in, go ahead and just do this. You're going to go right down to the scarf, and we're talking fast and easy. He's a little on the yellow side. I'm not sure if I like him a little on the yellow side, so what I'll probably do is take my handy dandy Kleenex and pull some color out. And when you do that, be sure to remember that watercolor is always lighter in color when it's dry than it is when it's wet. So, I like him. He's okay. A little orangey up here, I'm thinking. So I'm just going to dab with my Kleenex and kick the color back until I like what I see. I like that right there. Okay, I'm done. Handy Kleenex. So, now you've got to let it dry enough that you can actually paint on it because you don't want to have whatever you're going to paint next go blurring into the background color of the snowman. So I'm going to go ahead and blow dry him. I'm going to pause this real quick, blow dry him, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Now, one of the things that's kind of tricky to learn about watercolor, I find, is when do you leave paint wet and when do you wait until it's all dry before you paint on it? So you need to think about what it is you're trying to accomplish. The reason I didn't want this to be wet on wet is because what happens when you put wet paint on wet paint or wet paint on wet paper? It will move. If it's wet, it won't move. If it's dry, it won't move. So I wanted my snowman dry, and a little hair dryer is perfect. I think I had you guys on pause for maybe 10 seconds. I could have not even paused the camera and that would have been fine. So now he's dry, and you always see if he's dry, I shouldn't be doing this, I should really be doing this, because you do have oil on your hands, but I just washed mine, so I know there's no oil coming off of my hands. All right, so be sure that you use whatever paintbrush you use for those backgrounds, that you clean it and lay it flat. By the way, I want to mention that, because I never have mentioned that really with paintbrushes yet, and that is you need to be saving your brushes flat. When I'm done with a paintbrush, I rinse it out, every single time. I do it probably 4 times in a video, where I take the paintbrush, put it in water, swish it, and then I dry it on my towel and lay it flat. Do not ever leave your paintbrushes sitting in the water container with the point down, especially because it'll totally ruin your paintbrushes. So, ready for all the other stuff. Doesn't matter what you do next. You can do all the black stuff, which would be the twigs out of the arms, the mouth, and the eyes, or you could do the carrot, or you can do the scarf. You've got like 4 elements you're going to do. I'm going to do the scarf last because that's going to take the most time. So let's do something really fast and easy. Let's do our black. Once again, if you've got a great paintbrush that comes to a beautiful point like the black velvets do, you can use a number 2 black velvet brush. That's what I'm going to use. If you don't have that, you can use a waterproof pen, like a micro pen. But on this one, let me tell you, like here's a micron pen right here. This happens to be a color with brown. You can get these in all different colors, by the way. It's kind of cool. Then you can actually do a lot of wash and ink work, which we will be doing next spring. I'm going to teach you how to do wash and ink. I don't want to use a pen on this one because I'll probably be doing some more painting on top of it later, and if I do that, I'm going to totally ruin my inking. So if you have a paintbrush, great. If you don't have a paintbrush, then I would suggest you wait for the eyes, the eyebrows, and the mouth, and the little twiggy arms to the end. When you're all done painting everything else, and you know you're not going to use any more watercolor on it, so you're not going to mess it up. I am going to go ahead and paint mine now. So paintbrush with a tiny point. Just drop my paintbrush. And you're going to be very careful about this because these are little tiny pointy things. Be brave and do like 1 line. Don't try and paint, just swish the line. And if you're not sure how to do that, practice again. Just practice till you feel comfortable with how you're doing it, and then come back and do it on your painting. I'm going to make my squiggly, twiggy mouth. And you do want to cover all of the twig. You don't want to do it where it's broken up looking, but there's my mouth. And with the twiggy arms. I'm going to have to kind of fill this twig in because it's fat. But then I'm going to put nice twiggy things coming off of it. And then we're going to talk about how to make things look more realistic by adding more colors to your twigs. Okay, last twig. There we are. I mean, how fast is that? All we have to do now is the carrot nose and the scarf, and this painting's done. Ta-da! Orange. Orange for the carrot nose. And I'm going to use for the carrot nose, because it isn't a little tiny area, I'm going to use my Raphael 0, which is a pretty small brush, but large enough to do a little bit of work in a good sized area. And I'm painting the carrot orange. Just go ahead and fill in the nose. We'll make it look better in a second. And then we're going to talk about shadows on this one too, because notice that when I put that carrot on there, it looks like it's just stuck there, right? I mean, like someone took a piece of something, just stuck it on the paper. It doesn't look real great. So we're going to make it look much better by adding some shadow. What we're going to do is take that thin brush. If you've got your thin brush, pick it back up. I'm going to use my Payne's Gray again, or you can do a little bit of darker orange, or better yet, let's mix some Payne's Gray up with the orange. Take a look at that cool color I'm getting over here. So it's kind of a grayish orange, and let's add a little bit of shadow to this carrot. Under the bottom of the carrot, just draw a little line right there, and just over here where it attaches to the snowman. And I'm just going to dab it. Dab, 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 right? And then we're going to go ahead and draw some little sections and little dots because it's a carrot, right? I mean, it's not going to be, and don't just draw stripes. That'll look really weird when you get done. Just kind of dab it. In fact, let me see if I can get this super close. Here we are. Move it over a little bit for you. Okay, so here's my carrot nose. So I'm just kind of dabbing, because if you think about the lines that are on a carrot, they're not perfectly straight. They're really kind of squiggly. So you're just going to kind of squiggle and dab. You don't want it to be perfect. And that's going to give you your carrot lines. Rinsing my brush, wiping it off, clean and dry, or clean and damp, I should say. Going to mush this here. and mush it underneath a little bit because we want that carrot to not look like it's just frozen on his face. Well, that would be pretty funny because he's a snowman, so I guess it is frozen on his face. But now the carrot looks way better because it has some depth in color. It's not just plain old orange. And I'm going to give it a little bit more underneath here. Okay, carrot nose is done. All we have left, well, before we do the scarf, which is the last thing we're going to do, take a look at the twiggy arms. The twiggy arms are really black and just flat. Now, let me see if I can get a super close-up of my twiggy arms and show you what I'm going to do to those. I'm going to add another color on top of the twig so it doesn't look like just a paintbrush of a straight line with paint stuck on your paper. And how we're going to do that is we're going to add white because it's winter. So it's possible that something snowed on that snowman, right? So let me, and by the way, don't forget when you're opening up paint jars, using your pliers is a good way to open up these paint tubes without getting paint everywhere and without squeezing your tube to the point where you can't even use it anymore. So I am actually going to do this. I'm actually going to take my white paint in my tube and just put my brush right in the tube. Wiping it off because I don't want a whole bunch of globby stuff. I just want a little bit of paint. But what I do have is going to be super thick. Not watered down at all, but just thick white paint. And I'm going to put some snow on my twig. Now, when you do this, tiny bit, less is better. Less is definitely better. I have a hard time talking while I do this. You just want some white here and there. Same thing with the other arm. Get this in the camera. Here's the top of, I have it upside down, so here's the top of my twig. We're going to dab some white snow. Plus, twigs are not all the same colors, are they? They have all different shades to them. Okay, so now, you see how the twigs look now? Let's go back. The twigs look way better now. They don't look like they're just stuck on there. They look like they actually belong out in the winter. And you could also take a little bit of Payne's Gray with that same really pointy brush, really watery gray, and you could actually put a little bit of a shadow underneath the twig and where the twig pokes into the snowman. Now it's looking even better. Under the twig, that's a shadow, and where it pokes into the body. All right, so now if I get a close-up of that one, I've changed that quite a bit. It looks really funky up close, but it looks really great when you look at it as a card. You know, you're 6 inches away looking at it, it looks way better. I've got you zoomed in totally. All right, so now we have the scarf. And we're done. So the scarf is an issue. The scarf is going to take you some time. When I did my scarf, I decided to make it with little figures on it. So I took a pencil, at this point in the game, I took a pencil and I just put little tiny squares all over my scarf. It took me a while. I mean, probably the scarf took longer than the rest of the painting did. But I like it. I like it to be, I think I like that texture a lot. You could, however, do a solid color scarf, which would be super simple. You would just take a solid color and fill in the scarf, putting a little bit of Payne's Gray, down around the edges here and here to make it look like it's actually got shadow behind it. You could do stripes of different colors coming down, red and white or blue and green. You can make a striped scarf. You can do it tons of different ways. And I am going to go ahead and do it the way I did in the picture originally, which is with little tiny squares. Well, you know what? No, I'm going to try something new. Let's do this. Let's look close up at, there we go. Let's give a close-up of the scarf. So I'm going to tell you, if you're going to do the scarf, whether you do little squares or maybe flowers, this looks like almost like a flower, flowers on it or a striped scarf, You want to make sure the scarf is folded. You see how it's folded in 3 sections? And wherever it's folded, you want to put a nice line of dark color like the Payne's gray so that you can tell that it's actually folded. And whenever you fold something, you're going to have a shadow. So over here, I made shadows underneath here. It's barely visible, but it's a very light gray. I made it way down here. Wherever you're going to see part of the scarf, you're going to see some shadows. I made some shadow under this half of the scarf. And if you have a scarf, isn't it going to be folded? I mean, scarves don't lay flat typically. They have folds to them, gentle folds. I made that gentle fold with a line coming partially down. So let's go back. I think what I'll do, just to teach you everything, is I'll make a crazy scarf. I'll make this side of the scarf like I did this one. And I'll make this part of the scarf from up here stripes, as if you had, actually I'll even make this part solid color. So you can see all 3 ways of doing it. I'm going to start out by making little squares over here on my scarf here on the right. I'm just doing it with my pencil really quickly. I was going to do it without a pencil. I was just going to go ahead and paint it and leave spots empty. But the more I thought about that, the more I thought, it's not going to look right. Because it's hard to paint around a space that's not really there, and especially make all of them look identical, like they're actually squares. So I just did it with a pencil. And of course, I just did it just now talking to you, and that took me, 10 or 15 seconds. So then let's take a look at this side of the scarf. Let's make it come down and be stripes, but I'm not going to make it straight lines because a scarf would be kind of ripply, right? So that scarf I did this way. See the lines I drew? I tried to follow the contour of the outside of that scarf part so it would make more sense. Okay, so let's paint. I'm going to do it red. I love the red scarf. I was really happy with that red scarf, so I'm going to paint it red again. I like the brightness of the red scarf against the whiteness of the snowman. So all you do then is go ahead and wait, too much paint, hang on, too blobby. It's hard to talk and do this at the same time. And just go ahead and put in your boxes. I'm just painting around the boxes. That's all you have to do until that part is done. So I'm going to pause this. Well, maybe I won't pause it. Are you painting while I'm talking? If you're painting while I'm talking, we might as well talk while we're painting together, right? Because one of the cool things about painting is to actually chat with people while you do it. I would encourage you during this holiday season to invite a friend over. Don't have a big party and make it hard on yourself. Just invite a friend who's really also stressed out. And say, hey, you want to come watercolor today? Let's just watercolor for a half hour and have some candy. Whatever. Have something good to eat. Have some hot cocoa and talk and paint together. Because I am about a third of the way done with the scarf already. So yeah, invite somebody over. I think one of the problems with the holidays, actually, we talk a lot about connections with people during the holidays. And yet I find that sometimes the holidays can be the most isolating holiday, because if you don't have someone you're sharing it with and you're on your own, that cannot feel so great. Or maybe you have someone to share it with, but you're so darn busy planning food and shopping and decorating and other activities that you actually end up feeling kind of isolated. To tell you the truth, when I was raising my family, there were times when I was so busy with Christmas and wrapping. Oh my gosh, wrapping. I had 5 kids, so you're talking lots of wrapping here. And I found that sometimes in all of that effort and all of that work, I would feel isolated. It's like I was doing a lot of stuff, but I wasn't really connecting with the people. So if you find yourself in that same boat, in either one of those 2 boats, take some time to connect with people. I had a Christmas last year that was one of my favorite Christmases. As I say, I raised a lot of kids, did a lot of Christmas shopping, wrapping, cooking. Oh my gosh. If you're like me and you have a lot of kids, you probably cook for the whole week before Christmas. Last year, I found myself in a different kind of circumstance. And I ended up here on my own on Christmas Day for a variety of reasons. It wasn't a bad thing, it was fine. But I ended up inviting a friend to come over who also was on her own for that holiday, making the lines of the fringe here coming down at the bottom. And I asked her, I said, do you want to come over? I got a whole bunch of leftover food from a Christmas Eve event. Do you want to come over and just watch old movies and have some food? And we did, and it was one of the most delightful, fun, relaxing Christmas days I've ever had. Okay, so here's your scarf with all of the squares. So how about we try on this part of the scarf? I'm not going to use my black velvets because of the point. I don't want this to have a point. I want it to be more blocky looking. So I'm going to use my number 3 Raphael, which comes to kind of a squarish end. And let's make this different colors. Let's make blue. Get a color I like here. Now see, because of all of that funny stuff I did earlier, I've got, look, soup in the bottom of my bowl. I'm just going to dab it up with a Kleenex. There. Be careful with that Kleenex. Stick it someplace you won't get in trouble. So let's see, I've got some green over here, I've got some blue over here, and I've got Payne's Gray. So let's make this scarf green, blue, and yellow. And I think I'll put the yellow on the edge over here, and the blue over here, and the green in the middle. So let's do blue. What did I say? Blue, yellow, blue over here. So I'm going to bring that down. Now the other thing about painting the scarf with solid colors is that they wouldn't be exactly the same color, right? Because the light hits the paint, hits the scarf. Wherever your light source is coming from, you're going to have little folds of lighter colors, right? But there's a blue line. I'm going to wash my brush, wipe it off so it's damp, and I'm going to go down that along this edge. See how it's, can you tell it's picking up color? Let's get the, that's what I'm doing. See, I took the paint away. Clean, damp brush, so rinse it off, wipe it on your towel, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull some paint out. This color paint, by the way, is not easy to pull out. This is a staining. This blue happens to be as an indigo. It's a staining color. It won't pull out all the way to white. So if you make a mistake with indigo, you're in big doo-doo. Okay, let's do this one on the other side, yellow, because I don't want the colors to run together. I want them to look truly like a scarf. So be careful if you put your 2 wet colors next door to each other, you know exactly what's going to happen. And we don't want that. So on this edge, I'm putting yellow. I'm going to put some yellow fringe here. Should have put some blue fringe when I was over there. Sorry, we'll do it now. And green in the middle. Now, how am I going to do the green in the middle? I'm either going to wait for these to dry or get out my little hair dryer and do it. But I think while I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm going to do the top part of the scarf around his neck. So obviously, if you have a stripe here, you're going to have stripes here. The blue and the yellow. And so I'm going to make sure the yellow goes on the bottom. On the bottom. On the bottom. And blue at the top. Blue up here. Blue up here. Do not touch that yellow paint with the brush or it'll run all over the place. Blue up here. Be very careful. If you're putting a wet paint against a wet paint, just be so careful that it won't smudge. Now, ooh, it kind of looks cool with white in the middle, but I think I'm going to go ahead and go with my original idea with the green. I'm going to go ahead and blow dry, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. All we have to do is put the green paint in the middle. Now I'm going to use, for the green paint, I'm going to use this brush that has a point. Why do you think? The brush you pick up that you choose to use for each thing you're doing is important, and there are reasons for it. I'm picking up the pointy brush because My yellow isn't quite dry here from the hair dryer. I want to be sure I can put a really thin layer of paint without blobbing into the yellow. That's why I'm using it, because it's still a little wet. I didn't want to wait any longer. So I'm going to pick up my green. And I'm going to use the green here first. I like this green, but you know, if I had to do over again, I think I'd pick a little bit different color of green, more of a yellow. This has a lot of blue in it. Okay, now notice it's wavy. You want that, it's wavy because it's a scarf and it's kind of folded. All scarves will end up, you know, kind of draping is a better word than folded. They're not folded, they're draping. I'm going to put the yellow in, or the green in here and in here. And be so careful, Kersey, because this yellow here is wet. Using my little pointy brush so I won't mess that up. Okay, so one last thing to do, and that's to make the shadows in that scarf so it looks more realistic. And I also see I didn't do his little eyeballs. Well, for Pete's sake, Kersey, put those eyeballs in there. I was busy teaching, doing something I wasn't thinking clearly. So let's get his eyeballs in here. And if, by the way, you do this kind of dark work like this, just black and or really dark gray, and it turns out too light when it's dry, just do it again. Just go over it again and darken it up. You can do that. Okay, now I like his eyes. They're pretty cool looking. Okay. Now we want to dry this. Let this dry again, and now we're going to put the shadows in. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, we are back. So I'm going to use a brush with a very thin point, or this one wouldn't be bad either to do, because we're going to put shadows in. How do we do shadows? You know, you can use another color besides black or Payne's gray. If you can't get your black to be watery enough to really look like a thin gray, you should be able to do that. But another great color is purple. Purple makes great shadows, and I use it a lot also in my work, and you can, of course, make your own purple with blue and red. But I'm still going to stick with the Payne's gray here. I've got a little bit of watery stuff down here, and I'll push the brush against my cup to make sure it's not too dark, and that is too dark. So add more water. Do it until you find there, I like that right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some shadows here on the edge of the scarf. And I'm going to go ahead and put this super close, just so you can see it better. Hang on, here we are. I'm going down the scarf. I'm not drawing a line down the scarf. I'm just dabbing, tapping down the scarf. I'm making a little bit of a shadow. And right here where it would be wrapped around his neck, it would be shadowy there too, wouldn't it? It would be shadowy right there. Now, if it's too much of a straight line on your shadow, take a damp, clean brush and dab it back off again until it blends nicely into the white. See how nicely that blended right there into the white? Very easy to do. Okay, a little bit more of the Payne's gray, and let's go ahead and make a shadow over on this side too, where the scarf would be up against the snowman, and there would be a shadow there. And there would be a shadow over here. And there would be shadows under all of these guys right here. So let me get back out again. There would be a shadow under all of these. So I'm going to shadow all of these under here. And usually the shadow would be greater where two pieces of fabric come together. So I'm going to put a little bit of gray right there. And then clean damp brush, dab it back down so that it blends in with the white snowman. So you'll do this with every fold of the fabric. Every place the fabric is folding, you're going to dab a little bit of gray. Let's do this one more time, get it close. So you're going to dab it. And if you say, oh, that's too dark, well then fine. Clean your brush, clean damp brush, and dab it again. And it'll water right down. So now it's looking more and more like it's really just a shadow and not a bunch of black stuff. Over here, I'm going to put the card upside down. I'm going to dab this down. So now all you have really is what looks like a shadow, not a bunch of gray paint. Okay, now as I'm looking at this, it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it, quite frankly. Okay, so interesting things happen. You know, one of the greatest things about watercolor is that the funniest things you never expect to have happen. And then you go, oh, well, I kind of like that mistake. That mistake looks kind of good. So I just had a big mistake that I kind of like. Let me tab this. This gray is a little bit too extreme, I think, over here. I'm just going to tab that down a bit. Okay, so you can see now how the gray makes it look much more like a scarf. And you could even put, let me give you one more idea, a little bit of a gray down the middle of the scarf. Like suppose the scarf is kind of folded right here. You can make a little bit of a line going down there and soften that up, and then it looks like, da-da-da-da-da, it looks like the scarf has a fold in it. Right here. And that's just a little bit of gray paint. So, here's my original. I like him. Here's the one today. I like him too. But here's a curious thing. I like the red against the snowman because, you know, it's a Christmas color and it looks great against the white. So I think I'd stick with this red scarf. But now that I've made this scarf, an interesting thing happened. When I was painting it, the paint ran down here. It really did run. And I put the paint on in a really sloppy way up here. But I kind of like it because what would happen to a scarf on a snowman sitting outside? The snow would start to melt and then it would get runny. The scarf would get runny, especially if you used a scarf that was just made out of paper or whatever, or just a really cheap fabric. It might actually run. It kind of gives the whole snowman a different effect when you see this runny scarf than the red one. Now, if I was going to paint it to give a friend, I'm sticking with this. But as a trial, I think this was really an interesting idea to see what would happen if you used a different effect. I'm looking at this right now on the camera, and I'm looking at it in real life. It's a much deeper blue and green and yellow than it looks like on the camera. It came out pretty darn good. But those are our two snowmen. And next, we are going to be painting some Christmas trees, some free-form Christmas trees. You won't need to have, and let me get back here where we are. You won't need to have any line drawings for the Christmas trees. I'm going to show you how to do Christmas trees in some interesting different ways, just with a simple paintbrush, and it'll require you to be a little bit free. So practice on your freedom. And then I'm going to show you, I think I'm going to show you bokeh. If you haven't seen bokeh, it's like if you see a picture that has some, especially a photograph, that has some out of focus sections on it. I'm looking to see if I have one here. I had one, but I'm not sure if it's on my desk right now. Out of focus with a camera. Okay, well, here's kind of an idea. This is not a Christmas tree. This is a different picture. But if you see this one, there's what's called bokeh in here, where they've taken round circles of color away from the background. And it makes it look almost like it's an out of focus photograph. Bokeh is really simple, so simple to do. And it gives you some very interesting effects. Now, besides bokeh, they also put here snow with big flakes right on top of the painting, and I can show you how to do that as well. So I'm thinking for next week, we're going to do Christmas trees, 2 or 3 varieties, and we might do like 2 in one video. And then maybe we'll finish up the season either with this one or with some poinsettias. I have a really great, I like this one so much, poinsettia source photo. But not enough time to do them all because, heck, Christmas is coming. You know, we got like 2.5 weeks, and I don't know if you want to paint Christmas stuff in January, but I'll probably hold something back for next year as a tease. And in January, we're going to start doing all kinds of other stuff, some new techniques, some new styles, and we'll start working on flowers in the spring and fruits and vegetables and outdoor scenes. I've also got a whole series of cards that I'd like to show you how to do some different things on cards. So there's a whole bunch of new cool stuff coming up. So if you don't get to this painting until after the holidays because you just couldn't break away, I totally get it. Just save your emails and open them up whenever you want to open them up. So it's been great seeing you today. I want to remind you to be kind to yourself. You're doing great. Don't overload yourself so much. You know, you can say no. I didn't learn that till I was in my 70s, to say no to people. Boy, that was hard to do. Now I'm in my 80s, I can say no really easily, and I don't even feel bad. So say no to a few things if you have to, but take care of yourself and those you love. Hold them close, and don't be so busy that you don't get to be present with those people who are most important to you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.